Good evening. Good evening, everyone. This is your dating, relationship, and marriage coach, Anita Charlot. I'm also the founder of Relationship Architect Academy, the first online dating and relationship and marriage educational school dedicated to the grown-ass woman and those that want to be a grown-ass woman. Okay. I am coming tonight, as you know, Vlogmas is Vlogmas Day 10, and I decided that tonight I would stir the pot a little bit. So I've often asked this question in conversation or in settings. I even posted it on Facebook a while ago, and it was met with a lot of mixed reactions. I understand why, but I still want to pose the question to you. So what if marriage was just a 2-year contract and there was an out clause? So, for example, what if you decided that you wanted to get married to someone, you went down or you sat down with your lawyer, you already worked out how things would be split up if you guys weren't going to stay together, almost like a prenup, but not really a prenup because you are automatically dividing your assets or keeping your assets separate because at the end of the second year, if you want to stay, you can stay. If you want to go, you can go. Okay. So this is what that would look like. Me and, I'm not going to use me. Let's say Sharon and James have been dating for a while, or Sharon and Karen have been dating for a while, and they decide that they want to get married. Okay. So they go and they sit down and they fill out the paperwork and everything. And, they decide that they're going to go ahead and get married. They pay all this money for this wedding and they get married. But they didn't take the time to really get to know each other before they got married. So within these 2 years, they're having a ton of arguments. They're having one person wants to leave early, but they can't leave early because they are committed for 2 years. They're committed to living in the same house for 2 years. So it's just a big mess. So at the end of those 2 years, because those individuals didn't know each other, on the anniversary date or the Saturday, if it's a Saturday, then the Saturday before the anniversary date, you know how we're not going to play with the holidays and the weekends, but just follow me here. On that anniversary date, they are to meet back at the lawyer's office or at the courthouse or at the church, wherever they got married. And they are, if both of them show up, then they get to stay together for another 2 years. And they review the documents and they decide the documents are fine. Then they stay together again for another 2 years. And then come year 4, they go ahead and, they start, they go ahead and they go back to the place where they got married, and then they do their assessment. If one person doesn't show up, then the marriage is automatically dissolved on the same day that they got married, and they've already decided how to divide their assets. So why am I even thinking this way? As a dating, relationship, and marriage coach, I've talked to, hundreds, maybe even, addressed over the past 20 years, thousands of people in dating, relationship, and marriage workshops and seminars. And what I find to be so shocking to me is that the most important decision that you need to make in your life, people make these decisions haphazardly. They make these decisions based on the warm and fuzzies, right? So if you've read my book, The 5 Phases of Dating, then you know that the reason why I wrote this book was because I was tired of going through the motions of getting involved, getting my heart all wrapped up into relationships, and the relationships not working out. After having been in a long-term relationship for 4+ years, thinking that this was it, the relationship was done, I had no idea what to do with myself, how to pick up the pieces, how to move forward. I had kids in tow. It was a mess. And so I wanted to take the time to figure out, how can I make better choices before getting myself connected or before getting myself locked in to a long-term situation like I did then. Okay. The reason why people are getting divorced and they're cheating on each other and they're not happy and they're miserable. They're sitting, at home. They're staying at work longer because they don't want to go home. They're taking trips, throughout the year without their significant other, on vacations, all this other stuff, because they're trying to get away from the person. Why is this happening? And I started thinking, what would make people be more serious when it came to marriage? I think that if marriage was only 2 years, a full 2-year contract where you had to live in the same house, you couldn't leave, and you've already made, the rules about there be no infidelity. If there's infidelity, then here's a penalty and all of that. If we treated marriage like a contract, like a business contract, then at the end of those 2 years, if both people didn't come to the table, back to the we'll just say minister, just for the sake of keeping it easy. If both people didn't show up, then the marriage will be dissolved. So what would that mean? Okay, I've been talking legalities. My tongue is lazy this evening. I've been talking about the legalities of it. But what happens if you know that in the 2 years from the date that you got married, that person could choose to walk away? No questions asked. Everything already resolved. Your marriage was dissolved in like 24 hours. What would happen in those 2 years that you guys were together? First of all, I think that people would stop jumping into relationships just for the sake of being in relationships. I think people would stop having kids out of the just to try to keep someone, hold on to them versus letting them go so that they can be with someone that, they really jive with, that they really blend with. I also think that once those two people decided that, okay, this is a lot of work for us to go through before we got married, let's do whatever we can to make this work. We wanted to jump into this. Let's make sure we do our best and we put, a lot of work into it. I think that those 2 years will be spent, instead of arguing and fighting and going with the whole concept of, marriage is hard for the first 2 years. In my honest opinion, and this is just my opinion, your experience may be different, you may feel differently. But if people were to take their time and really get clear on what it is they're looking for, would stop sending in the representative, would pay attention to what their needs are, would learn how to communicate those needs and articulate their needs to another person, would stop hiding behind pain from their past, and would really just do the necessary work before they got into a marriage, then those first 2 years don't have to be as difficult as everybody say that they are. They don't have to be that difficult. I think when two people get together and they haven't done their work on themselves first, and then they haven't taken the time, instead of rushing, getting into something, following their college friends, or listening to their parents, or getting married because all their other friends are married, or having kids because all their other friends are having kids. You'd stop following other people. Stop trying to keep up with the Joneses. Stop trying to rush into something just because your hormones are blazing, right? Then you would take your time, and those first 2 years wouldn't be a difficult 2 years, because you would have already figured out what it was that you needed in a person so that you could have the quality of life and love that you want. Okay. So in these 2 years, you would spend these 2 years, you wouldn't waste time having stupid arguments. You wouldn't waste time going through silent treatments, because at the end of that second year, that person could just not show up, and you would be devastated. Maybe not. But if you're standing there at the altar waiting for that person to come, you will have the same butterflies as the first time you got married. When it was your first time, you were nervous, you didn't know, maybe somebody took a little bit too long and you got nervous. Are they going to show? Did they change their mind? Same thing can happen at that second year. So within those 2 years of you guys being together, you're going to do whatever it takes to get the communication right, to get the financial situation correct, to get whatever intimacy issues that you have. You're going to get those worked out, because you are not going to want to be standing there by yourself at the end of the 2 years. Okay. So I know this is a radical thing, but it's just something for you to think about. What if marriage was a 2-year commitment with an out clause? I think people would be a lot more serious about getting themselves together before they proposed. I think individuals would be a lot more serious about not just dating and sleeping around with just any old body, because they recognize the trouble and the financial obligations that it would take in order to get married in the first place and then to get divorced 2 years later. Who would want to go through all of that pre-work, all of that work within those 2 years to then just have somebody not show up? You wouldn't do it. So for those of you that are already married, I want to ask you this question. And I'm not asking you, I'm not trying to start any fights here, right, between anybody. I just want you to ask this question. Because if you are not married to the person that if you are not happy to go home, if you are not married to the person that you feel like is the person that you would show up for in 2 years, why is that? Is it because you overlooked something in the beginning? Is it because you didn't work through something that you had going on, and so you latched on to the first person? What is that reason? And I'm not asking you this to start any fights within your marriage. The reason why I'm asking you this is because just because you're married now, and that may have been the reason why you got married, doesn't necessarily mean that cloud has to stay over your marriage now. If you are married and you have some issues that you need to work through, then you need to work through those issues. If you plan to stay married, you need to work on whatever it is you need to work on outside of your marriage, meaning not outside with the side piece, but outside with a coach or a therapist that's going to help you work through that so that you two can grow together. You made the choice to get married, so then you should make the choice to try to work it out. If you were only bound to that marriage for 2 years, would your spouse show up to court or to the church on your wedding anniversary? Would your spouse show up, or would your spouse leave you standing there at the altar? Think about that. And this is for men and women. Yes, I'm talking, I am a dating, relationship, and marriage coach, and I specialize in grown-ass women, or helping women, grown women, become grown-ass women. But I'm also talking to the men who like to date grown-ass women, right? Or the men who say, well, my wife isn't, or my girlfriend is not mature enough, or she's not, my wife isn't mature enough. Well, okay, well, let's look at how you two got together and where your maturity level was then. Either one of you, look at it. If the husbands, I want you to think about it. The man that you have been to your wife right now, as of this date today, if your anniversary date was tomorrow, and it was your 2-year anniversary, or a 2-year anniversary, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, whatever it is, and you had to show up at the church on your wedding anniversary, would your spouse show up? Would your spouse show up? We tend to think once we're married that the person is stuck with us. And a lot of times, religious beliefs, societal beliefs, family beliefs and obligations, the fact that there are children involved will keep you tied to a marriage that you should not have ever gotten into in the first place. I know, because I'm once divorced. But just thinking about it, if you think about it in this way, whether you're married, whether you're in a relationship, or whether you're dating, how are you showing up for your significant other? If tomorrow was the day that you were to both show up at a place in order to determine if you would still be together, would you be concerned that the other person may not show up? And if your answer is yes, what can you do about it? I'm sitting here like I'm waiting on you to answer, right? But this is something that I want you to think about. If you think that there is a possibility that your significant other would not show up tomorrow, then I need you to start looking at and paying attention to how you're showing up in your relationship, in your marriage. And if you want to make a change, then I need you to make a change. For the man, I'm going to ask you right now to man up. If it's you that needs to make the change, you know what you're doing. If your wife or your significant other, your girlfriend, your lady, whatever you want to call it, if she would not show up tomorrow, then you need to check yourself. Ladies, If your boyfriend, your man, your husband may not show up tomorrow, then you need to check yourself. But if marriage was only a 2-year obligation with an out clause, I bet each and every one of you would think long and hard about preparing to attract the right person into your life. I paid the price, right? I've been there, done that, bought the shirt. Heck, I wrote the book. I wrote the book. So I'm telling you, once you get clear on what it is you're doing, how you're showing up in your relationships, once you understand what it is you really need, what you want to attract in your relationships, then you can definitely do that. You can do that. All it takes is one person to shift the energy in your relationship. And if you don't know how, there are plenty of people out here that do know how. And I'm not going to just throw you to the wolves. For you men, I'm not going to leave you high and dry. I posted yesterday, and I'll put his information here in the content of this video as well. But Coach Michael Taylor, he is the male counterpart. I always send the husbands or the boyfriends of my clients I refer them to Coach Michael Taylor. Okay, so I'm going to put his information in there. And ladies, if you don't, and I know you don't know me from a hole in the wall, right? You see my face pop up every day this month for Vlogmas. You see my face pop up, but you don't know me. I'm going to invite you to purchase a book. All of the links are in the content of the video, but I'm going to invite you to purchase a book. Do your own self-check. There's homework to be done in the front. I've been reading the difference between how a woman versus a grown-ass woman would handle a dating situation in the back all month. Just grab you a book. You can start here. You don't have to hire me personally, but you can grab the book and you can start working on self-reflection and actually getting clear on how you're showing up, how you want to show up, and how you can do that. And then if you need additional help, I'm here for you. But you can start with the book. So I'm going to leave you with this. If you take a full, honest look at your current relationship or ships, for those that are polyamorous, would your significant other or others show up on your anniversary to sign up for another 2 years of life with you? And if the answer is, I'm not sure, then sit and think about it. If the answer is, I don't think so, I haven't put them through a lot this year, then I'm going to need you to do some soul searching and figure out what is it about your actions, what's behind your actions, and whether or not it's something that you want to change. You may not want to change it. You may realize that you have reached the end of your rope. And if that's the case, then do both of you a favor and let the other person go respectfully so that they can find and attract the person that's really going to treat them the way that they deserve and they want to be treated. And you shouldn't have to stay someplace that you don't feel like you want to be either. So it doesn't make sense for two people to stay together and be miserable and fighting with each other all the time. That's not healthy. That's not healthy for either of you, nor is it healthy for the children. So I'm going to leave you with the question for tonight. If marriage was a 2-year commitment with an out clause where you can just walk away, or not even walk away, you don't even have to show up. You both show up, or you're supposed to meet at a certain place at a certain time. And if one person is not there at that time, you may give it like a 10-minute leeway or whatever. But if they don't show up, there are no questions asked. You agreed that this is the time that you would spend together. So it's almost the same as if someone only had 2 years left to live. And I use this analogy with my clients. What if you only had 24 hours left to live? You know, for the women that are like, I'm tired of being single. I'm tired of, I'm tired of fighting with him. I'm tired of fighting with her. I can't believe I have to go through this again. Oh my goodness, here it is. I have to start all over. And then my question is, if you only had 24 hours to live, is the person that you're with now the person that you would want by your side for those last 24 hours? Would that person if that person is not with you, let's say if you're not married, if you only had 24 hours to live, could you count on that person that you're dating, that person that you're in a friendship with, situationship with, is complicated, whatever the situation is, if you're not married, could you count on that person to be there for you? Could you count on that person to be there for you? Only 24 hours. And let's say that you could count on that person to be there, but what type of energy would that person bring? You only had 24 hours to live. You're terrified. You're about to transition to, you're about to transition out of this world. Is the person going to show up and be irritable? Is the person going to show up and be nice to you? Are they going to be, telling you what you should have done, all the things you didn't do? Are they going to be super critical and tell you how they told you that you should have, had yourself checked out and blah, blah, blah? Or is this person going to be there and make you feel safe? And don't act new. Man, we know that you want to feel safe too. At least I know that you want to feel safe. You want to know that your woman has your back. You want to know that she is your soft space, the place where you can lay your head after you've been out there fighting with the world. Okay? Women, especially grown-ass women, especially professional women, women who own businesses. We want to know that at the end of the day, while we're out there, saving the world or slaving over the world or building a business, building an empire, running an empire so that other people can feed their families, we come home, we want to have a safe space to lay our head. We want to have some strong arms to be held in. So men and women alike that are watching this video, I'm going to ask you, are you with the person that you would want to spend your last 24 hours with? And if you're married, are you in a relationship? Could you trust that the person that you are with now would show up tomorrow on the anniversary of your commitment to each other? So if you're married, it will be your wedding anniversary. If you're dating and you've been in a relationship for a while, it will be your relationship anniversary. Could you trust that they're going to show up? If they had an easy out, no questions asked, would they show up? Ask yourself that question. Really think about it. And if you need to ask, you need to hit me up. There's a link in the content of the video for a 30-minute discovery session, complimentary. If you want to talk about it, we can talk about it. We can talk about how, whether or not, I can help you figure it out, right? Because a complimentary session is not a coaching session. It is a session to determine whether or not I am someone that can help you, or if I need to refer you to someone else, or if you even want to work with me. I may not be your cup of tea, and that's okay. But it's not about me right now. It's about you asking yourself this question. Are you with the person that you would want to spend the last 24 hours with? Or are you with the person that are you showing up in a way in your relationship where you're confident that your significant other is going to show up in that place tomorrow? All right, think about that. Okay, I'll be back tomorrow. Tomorrow will be Vlogmas Day 11. And if you guys haven't tuned into any of the videos I didn't explain at the beginning, let me explain now. If you're watching the replay, let me tell you what I've been doing. Every day this month, a couple of business besties and I have decided that we are going to go live every day, sharing advice, tips, suggestions according to our markets. And so my market, as you know, is dating, relationship, and marriage coaching. As I stated, I am Anita Charlot, your dating, relationship, and marriage coach. I'm also an Amazon best-selling author, and I am the founder of Relationship Architect Academy, the first online dating, relationship, and marriage educational school dedicated to the grown-ass woman and those that want to be. Okay? So that's me. That's who I am. All the information is in the content of the video. I will be back tomorrow for Vlogmas Day 11. Haven't decided what the topic is going to be, but I will let you know, and it will definitely be something that's going to get you thinking, okay? Because it's time out for making excuses for ourselves and for other people. You're either going to be in a relationship or you're not. You're either attracted to this person or you're not. There is, as my favorite movie, it's called, the movie is called Unfaithful. And there's a part in the movie where she says, oh, this was a mistake. I never should have done this. This is a mistake. And he's like, there's no such thing as a mistake. There's only what you do and what you don't do. So if you're going to be in a relationship, then be in the relationship. If you're dating and you just want to get to know each other, then be honest about that. If you're not sure where it's going to go, then be honest about that. If you're married and you want to stay married, whatever you need to do to make it work, to fix it, to shift the energy, then do that. But I'm going to ask you women to be grown-ass women, own your stuff, and recognize the truth in others. And I'm going to ask you men to be grown-ass men and man up and do whatever it is you need to do to make your situation right. Because life is too short to be running around being unhappy with the wrong person, having the wrong energy, and wishing you were somewhere else. Okay? All right. I will see you guys tomorrow. I am going to jump off now. And if you have any questions for me, feel free to post the questions in the comments. All right. I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye.